welcome. We have another live masterclass. Thank you for joining me today. We have 3 beautiful performances coming up. We're going to start with Nadia, and yeah, let's just get started. So let me try to share her performance. Let's see, also share tab audio. I think we should be going. So I'm going to let it play first. She's playing an arrangement of Clair de Lune by Debussy. Beautiful performance. And hopefully I'll be able to see the sheet music while we go through this. There we go. I think so. I think this should work. Okay. Beautiful performance, Nadia. Thank you so much for sharing. Wonderful. Maybe if you're here, could you please just confirm that you can hear me so that I know that I'm not just shouting out to myself, and that you could hear the recordings. That's the most important part, that you can hear the performers and all of their beautiful hard work. I would really appreciate that. Thank you. Great. So Nadia, really beautiful work. You've put in so much hard work, and you've accomplished. You're playing this so you really create the atmosphere, which is when we're playing something like Debussy, when we're playing something that's impressionist, that's really painting a picture in our minds based on what we're hearing. And that you've already got down. You're doing such a lovely job with that. And so you should already be super, super proud. And there are just some very small things that I think that you can work on moving forward that will help you keep refining this and feel more comfortable and more confident when you're performing the piece. But they're really minor things. There are a few counting. I want to make sure you're counting all the time. We're gonna look at a few spots with that. But the notes you've got down beautifully. They're just there are one or two little things. So regarding counting, I can tell that you've listened to the original a lot, that you've put in your time there, and that you've really done the due diligence of listening to different recordings and kind of developing the idea for the timing, because we do need to count. And then at some point we also have to let it breathe, and you're doing a great job of letting it breathe. The music just flows so naturally through you. And it's so clear how much you enjoy making music. It's always so beautiful to hear. So a few spots that I would recommend are mostly when it comes to the long notes, actually. So make sure that that's where we really have to watch our counting and be very precise, because it's nice to just sit back and enjoy the sounds. And we always kind of have this idea of, yeah, I can wing it. I can hear if it's the right length or not. And the thing is, when we're playing, we have too much that we're managing all at once, whether it's conscious or not. You know the piece really well, so I don't think you're really struggling to think of the notes at this point. But whenever we have long notes, we always think we can count them, and we're rarely. So for example, in measure, if we start at measure 23, Nadia, if you have your music in front of you, I'm not sure that I can share this with everyone, can I? Oh, thank you, Lori, you can hear me, that's great. A window. Okay, I'm not going to be able to share the sheet music. That's not going to work for today. But if we start in measure 23, then you have these. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There, you really have to count, and I'm going to show you one more time, just so that I want to make sure it's really clear. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, and there you can stretch. You can stretch it out a little bit, because we have this figure of, it's like the moon just comes out. It's over the lake, and you see the reflection, and it's just like this glorious moment of when the moon first comes up, because this is clair de lune, right? And the light of the moon. We have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So you don't have to be super strict, but I do want you to be really clear on where your pulse is. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And so if you go through that section and just make sure that you're counting, if you heard, I'm not counting super, super strictly. I'm stretching how I'm counting. But I know where my pulse is, and I know where I have this give and take, and where I want that give and take. And that's what I want you to work on in that section. And then these funny little spots where we're switching back and forth between 3/4 time and 4/4 time. There we also have to really keep an eye on things. So we're starting in measure here. We're up to measure 35. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I would stretch that out. I think you can take your time there. I don't think it has to be really hurried. Sorry, my printer's out of ink, so I don't have them here, and I don't have the iPad today. So I have to play while looking over at the computer. But one more time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I think if you just stretch a little bit, but I want you to at least spend a week really counting and being very specific there. Try out different tempos. Maybe you're going to want to go a little bit slower. Maybe you're going to want to stretch throughout that pattern. But you have to know where the rules are before you can bend them a little bit. You have to know where that structure is before you can start to play around with the ideas. So promise me you're going to count there, and I know you're going to develop it really beautifully. I'd love to hear a recording after you work on these ideas a few more weeks and hear how all of that comes together. And then with those big chords, you're doing beautifully. In measure 49, I know you changed the fingering here. We have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's very uncomfortable, isn't it? Because if you can't see the music right now if you're not playing this particular arrangement of the piece, but it stretches all the way up to a tenth. Yeah, I was gonna try to tell you to try to do that fingering, but it's I don't have a big enough hand to really feel comfortable doing that, for example. So then I think if your piano has a middle pedal, you could play around with catching that G, that low G with the middle pedal. And what the middle pedal does is it holds only the notes that we were playing in the moment when we depress the pedal. And so that middle pedal could be a really handy trick for you there, because you'll have that sound from that G. I don't have a middle pedal, so I can't show you very well. But that could really help you there also. So we have 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, except I'm an octave 2. 1, 2, 3. But there, I think you can probably reach the G sharp up to that F is not so far. And if you hold that G sharp that's in the bottom of that measure, then we have that bass line for longer. I would say you can even extend that G sharp in the bass there through the full 3 measures, so that kind of reflects what's happening in measure 49. It's a very similar pattern. And then the same in measure 58. So yeah, I completely agree with how you settled that issue there, but do try the middle pedal, Nadia, because if I'm not mistaken, your piano might have one. If you just have the one pedal, that's also fine. Just don't worry about it. It's that's just if you want to play around with holding on to that. But in measures 52 and 58, you do have the ability to just kind of hold on to that bottom note and stretch it out through the full 3 measures, and that could help you out there, I think, because then you hear that bass line, and it's really nice. And then the next spot with counting is in measure 67. So we're coming from our last. If we start 3 measures before that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 1. Sorry, I completely read it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. And I would say I probably stretched it out too much, but I do want you counting there just so that you really line up those rhythms. And again, it's like this idea of it's good to exaggerate, but we have to know where the boundaries are before we know where we can have this give and take, this push and pull. So I'm going to try that one more time and try not to butcher the notes for you so you can actually hear what I'm trying for. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2. And I got too quiet too soon. It should be 4 at the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. And then that one's just 3, and then you move on. And the way you play, your change of color here is beautiful. You do such a beautiful job. I'm muddling the notes again. Sorry. Yeah, it's a C. Sorry, it's too far away. My eyes aren't as young as they used to be. And it's C major, E minor, C major. I don't know if you've thought about harmony here, but that could also be helpful maybe. If you think about it's a C major chord, because your color is beautiful and you're playing it, you're doing such a beautiful job. And I think if you just kind of think about the chords a little bit, because you do the groups of 2 measures really, really well, but then the repetitions, I feel like you're stopping and thinking just a little bit about what notes you need and where you should end up. And your timing here is gorgeous. Your sound is really incredibly beautiful. C major for that first pattern, and then E minor, and it's just back and forth between those two, C major, E minor, and then something new pops up. E flat major to what's essentially C minor, and then in measure 79, 80, it's the same thing. This back and forth between C major, E minor, 1, and there. It's important that you understand your pulse, and which I think you do. I don't think you have any issues there. And so you do need to make sure that you understand the speed of that section in terms of how it fits in. But then I would be tempted to view those as each measure is almost its own beat, just because it's one really beautiful flowing pattern that just kind of leads into the next and into the next, into the next. And so there, I think, again, your sound is beautiful. So there, in terms of musicality, I don't think you need any assistance. I think you've really gotten that down, and it's going absolutely wonderfully. What I do think you could pay attention to are those chords. And if you sometimes we see that it's the same patterns, but if we don't have a way of organizing it, like, yeah, that's just C major, then we don't always understand how to process the information necessarily. And so that might be a helpful little trick for you there. And then at the very end, the last little thing in the piece, you're playing beautifully, but the C doesn't come at the same time as the E flat. In measure 81 and 82, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, also to be clear, I'm counting in groups of 2 measures just because they're kind of grouped that way, and it I'll count more clearly. I think that maybe isn't helpful. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. I'm too low again. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So here, what I want you to keep track of is the left hand, that E flat, and the left hand is actually all on its own. You need to hold it through the whole next measure. So it's 1, 2, left hand plays, and then the right hand plays that C all on its own. And there, that's where you hold for 3 beats, and then it repeats. 1, 2, left, right, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then for that ending, it doesn't need to be really strict, but it is all C major again. So if you keep track of the fact that it's C major, it's C, G, C, E, G, C, E, G, C, E, G, C. Oh, that was already too many. But the whole thing is just C major. So if you practice your C major chord and all of the inversions of those, that might help you just feel more comfortable there at the end, because it's like, oh, I've gotten it down, and then there's all of this. There's a lot of reading in that last line. It's not so much that the pattern is difficult, but the reading, I think, is maybe what's slowing you down a little bit. So if you just learn to group those as C major, C major, C major, and then roll that last C major. That squiggly line means to roll, right? Maybe you know. I'm not sure if you knew that or not. And so it's just like the last little. And to me, this piece is called Chiara Lune, in the light of the moon. But I feel like it has to be, my personal imagery for this piece is the moon being reflected in some body of water. And I think at the end with this rolled chord, we really hear that, just like the ripples, and then everything fades into the peace of the night, or however you want to imagine that. But hopefully those are helpful for you, Nadia. Really beautiful playing. You've done so much good work. And then for anyone watching, what are the takeaways here? What are the general things in a piece like this that has it? Pieces where we aren't really supposed to notice the rhythm as a listener are sometimes the most difficult to play, because we have to have the rhythm. We have to build that rhythm in, and we have to know exactly how the rhythmic structures line up. And so that's That's just one of the things of being a piano performer versus being the listener, the passive listener of piano music is when we're not the ones playing, we just get to sit back and relax and it's beautiful sounds. But when you're the one playing, make sure that you spend at least a week or two really ironing out rhythm, really making sure that you're clear on how the rhythms function. And then, like I said, especially with certain styles, maybe less with Bach than with something like Debussy or Chopin, then we can start to have this give and take, this push and pull in the rhythm. And it doesn't have to be something super strict that lines up really well with a metronome, but we have to be really clear on how those things function before we let go and just kind of enjoy the rhythms. And long notes, we always have to count the long notes. As the performer, there's no amount of guesswork that will ever get you close enough to playing the rhythms accurately. And then maybe one other thing is anytime you have technical patterns that move fairly quickly and you're just not quite sure how to, sometimes when we have patterns like that, we feel like we're trying to keep up instead of coming at, like, knowing exactly where we're going and having this clear idea of how to stay ahead of the pattern instead of the pattern running away from us. Usually they're based on some sort of harmonic structure. And so, like I was telling Nadia in this piece, a lot of it is just C major, E minor, C major, E minor, back and forth. And so if you have patterns like that in your pieces and in your music, that's something that you can always kind of try to take things apart. And maybe you won't find anything. And if you don't find anything, just send me an email and we'll get you sorted out. We'll make sure that we get you taken care of. Because it's 95% of the time, there's at least some sort of rough harmonic structure that's going on that we can use to keep track of everything. Great. Okay. Then next up, we have... I'm so sorry. I know we've exchanged many messages, and I think we say your name Josue. I know it's not Jose because it has a U in it. I'm so sorry. I should have asked you how to say your name properly. So hopefully Josue is the correct pronunciation of your name. I'm again so sorry. And he's playing Married Life from the movie Up. So first, let's hear his performance. Okay, sorry. Wolfie heard that the delivery man is outside. He's still rather unhappy, but hopefully, crisis averted. Yeah, excellent, beautiful play, Josue. Really, really, really nice work. You put in a lot of time on this piece. It's really clear how much you practiced, and it just rhythmically really solid, technically really solid. And all three of our performers today, I have to say, you have such genuine, impressive timing, not just in terms of you understand the rhythms and you're making the rhythms and you're doing the rhythms, but that you really, all three of you, so clearly love the pieces that you're working on, and you have this really natural approach to rhythm. You have this sense of timing that so many professional musicians wish that they were as in touch with the feelings of the music that they would create these atmospheres. And I'm really, I mean that very sincerely, that it's playing precise rhythms is one thing, and then playing rhythm in a way that really conveys the spirit of the music is another. And all three of you are doing a remarkable job on that. So all three of you can give yourselves a big pat on the back. And yeah, so the just very small things. They're really, we've already talked about how you can use ghosting here. I don't have the sheet music for this one, so I can't demonstrate as much. But ghosting, for anyone who isn't aware, is where usually the melody's in the right hand. So usually you're going to be playing the right hand completely normally. And then the left hand is just you're going to depress the keys, but only be playing on the surface of the keys. And the goal is that the sound doesn't come out in very small chunks. You don't need to practice an entire piece like that. It's really enough to practice a phrase or two with that technique. And so that because your melody is already coming out, but the left hand is maybe, for my taste, just a little too present. That would be my biggest critique, is that you can keep improving that. But the timing is really beautiful, and you've put in so much good work. And we've also discussed that I know he practices technique a lot and in a very intentional way, and your hand position looks great, your wrist position, everything looks really, really natural, and it doesn't look like you're struggling to play any of the things. But I did find very relatable about a few spots when you were playing was every now and then, like, you got through a big section and then you went and you just let out a big sigh, like, whew, we made it, now it's time for the next section. And it's inevitably when you get back to something that's a bit more comfortable, that you're a bit more familiar with. And yeah, extremely relatable. I think all of us have felt that at least at one point. I felt it many times in my life, and it's extremely relatable. I would encourage you to try to do that more inwardly than outwardly while you're performing. But yeah, and then the other thing that I noticed as you were playing, where you are using the pedal beautifully. You're doing an outstanding job of it's never too much. There are maybe just one or two tiny, tiny spots where I felt like you could maybe make the changes a little bit more cleanly. But in general, you really are creating exactly the effects that you want with the pedal, and that's beautiful. That's going really, really well. What I did notice is, let's see if I can actually put my pedal in the image here. Was that as you pedal, it looked like your foot was like, I could see that the tips of your toes were up against your piano. And that means that you're kind of pedaling from this part of your foot, from back behind the ball. Really what we want is to use the tips of our toes, and then you're just going to have a lot more control. If you keep the tips of your toes on the pedal instead of having it up on the ball of your foot or back behind the ball of your foot even, then you're just going to have more control, and it's probably going to be more comfortable too. You won't have to have your foot at such an angle, and that'll just be easier to deal with, I think. Anything else? Timing, like I said, you're doing really, really well. Maybe at the end, I wouldn't slow down so much in that final section where it's like it gets a bit sad for a bit. I like the change of tempo. I would maybe try to still get a little bit more direction to keep things moving a little bit more instead of bringing the tempo back so far. But in general, really, really nice. really nice contrast of sounds. You're creating the sounds that you want, and you can be very proud of the hard work that you put in on this piece. So congratulations, good for you. And then last but not least, we have a performance from Tony. Tony is sharing Christmas Time is here with us. Beautiful jazzy arrangement, and he has some specific questions he wants to address also. So let's hear his performance first. Beautiful. Congratulations. Congratulations. Beautiful playing. Wonderful. Such a great piece. It's one of my favorites. It's one of my Christmas favorites. Good. So outstanding play. This has grown so much since the last time I heard it. I heard it, probably almost a year ago now. And I can tell that you've done your ghosting, you've done your due diligence there. The melody is singing out really beautifully. And that's going really, really extraordinarily well. Congratulations. So then Tony's biggest question was in terms of how do we take something like this that's written out and how do we start to improvise with our musical ideas a little bit? Or in general, how do we get into the groove with improvisation? Because there is this phenomenon of, okay, I don't know, there's this fear of the blank page, right? So the nice thing is taking pieces like this is a really good way to get into improvisation, at least a little bit, because it's not just a blank page. You have some structures to go on and you're doing some improvisation. I really like the things that you've come up with. They sound really, really nice. Some of those are his additions to something that otherwise was just written out as he added in this. So instead of playing the block chord, he was turning it into an arpeggiated pattern, which is a really good way to get into it. It's sort of playing things like this that really lend themselves well to improvisation, especially things that are of a jazzy art that are kind of like an open invitation to improvise anyway, are a nice gateway drug into improvisation. I think just because it's not starting from zero, and it's not that you have to come up with every single thought and every single idea that goes into it. And the nice thing about the arrangement that you have is that it also lists out the chords for you. And so we don't necessarily have to stick to the chords when we're improvising and when we're kind of creating improvisational patterns from sheet music. But if you don't feel comfortable doing it yet, it's a good jumping off point, because just as a rule of thumb, it's never going to sound bad. And there is, I think, a general fear of, I think that was always my biggest barrier to improvising, was that I just didn't want to create things that I didn't like how they sounded. And if you have sheet music and the sheet music is in front of you, and you know how it's supposed to sound and you know it sounds good, then we don't have to address these fears. We don't have to deal with that, right? There's not this, ooh, what was that? On the other hand, jazz musicians are always talking about the blue note, right? The wrong notes that are actually really expressive, and you just build them into how you're playing and creating that. So for the remainder of our time today, I think what we can do is just kind of workshop a few ideas of how you could build some improvisation into this particular piece, into this particular song, and then maybe that will give you some food for thought for what you can do in other works as well to get a bit of improvisation. So the one thing that you can do is play around a little bit with rhythms, maybe. Let's just, again, forgive my sight reading because I have a lot of looking back and forth. So I'm gonna make this as big as I can so I can see a little bit better. And as I'm going through this, if anyone has any general questions that you would like me to answer as I'm wrapping up, go ahead and leave those in the chat feed, and I will get to those before we wrap up today as well. So yeah, there I might not even improvise, just because I think it's kind of setting the stage. I was wondering if there's anything we could do. That's something that you could do. You could actually just add in like an extra octave in the left hand. So instead of C, you could do 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and then it just adds a little bit of push into the next measure. Where do we jump? That's a figure I like to build into this song when I play, is just because there's so many like melodic figures that I think you can make out of this. So it's like adding in a second voice. So instead of going to that chord, you're kind of just mirroring back what's just happened. So the A is still prominent. That's still our melody note. But it's just like an echo of what came before. Yeah, that's another thing I like to do. It's hard for me as someone who doesn't do a lot of improvising, and I don't play a lot of jazz, I'll be very honest, to give general rules of thumb. What I can do is look at a song like this, and I played a different arrangement of this. And so I also have sort of my little improvisational ticks that I add to it. And I'll do my best to walk you through what I do, or what to me just sounds like what I want to hear when I'm listening to the song. So, and wait, I can't see what I'm doing because can you see? So if you can see, I don't let go of this A while I'm playing that pattern, and then I go back. I play it again at the end of the measure, but I hold on to it that whole time when I'm playing these other notes. And then here, the rule of thumb that I told you before actually doesn't apply, because what I'm doing is, again, just kind of echoing what happened in the measure before. All of that is actually just F major. Your chord in this measure is E flat 7, with a sharp 11. And I'm just doing an arpeggio through F major. Then, let's see. Then we're in measure 9. Sorry. And there. Sorry, what are the notes? That's another thing that always works really nicely in this piece, is just adding a C octave a bit higher than the register that you're playing in. It's just like a little bell somewhere out in the distance. And that's what I always do in this spot, for example. Cling. Yeah, so Tony, I think the best advice I have for you here is try to find ways that you can take some of the melodic material that's already existing in the song and just kind of superimpose it on the patterns that you already have. So that there's some sort of coherence to the things that I'm telling you. I'm going to try to come up with 5 specific spots that you can build little melodic patterns into. So the first one would be in measure 6, where you have this, and then where I told you to kind of echo the melody back. So just you're repeating C, C, A, and then here you play everything as written. And then here, if you want to do the F major, and it's just playing up and then back down. So your melody note is A, and instead of going down to this C and F that's already written out in your right hand, what I want you to do is try to go, you're going to leave your thumb on A and then play C, F, A, F, C, A. So basically it's 1 octave of F major up and back down. So that's your second spot. And then here you already have a really nice feel for like playing the rhythms, but in a very relaxed, jazzy, not strict metronomic way. So then here, then you're gonna add your little C pling, because it fits in with the chord. And then let's move forward and see if we can find anything else for it. And so you can do that in measures 12 and 13. You can do it both times, or you can try to do something different. That's again your call. It's improvisation, so it's always your call. There you could also again just add an F major. And maybe mix in that G also that's in your melody. So you play the chord as written, and you're going to start over with your thumb on the same A that you just played. A, C, F, G, A, C, F, G, A. And then you could actually, you could do that all the way up here, and then you could do the next little section an octave higher than it's written. So if you want. I really like the pattern that you have there. And so if you decide to play this section an octave higher, then go ahead and do this octave jump another octave higher. And then maybe here for Beauty Everywhere, maybe you want to jump back down to where you were, where it's written. You can also just always add to this waltz rhythm if you want to add more rhythmic variety. So instead of just 1, 2, 3 in the measures where it's written out as a quarter and then a half, you can also just play it as quarter notes. Turn the page. You can also just stretch that pattern out. Could also be an option. You could start higher and bring it back down. That you could roll. Rolling always works really nicely. I know you rolled a few things. And that's another spot where you can kind of just extend the chord that's already there up to kind of rejoin the melody where the melody picks it back up. Then you can also just, you don't have to change the register. You don't have to play any other notes. You can also just take the notes that are there and instead of holding them out, turn them into little flourishes and ornamentations of what's already on the page. That might be a more comfortable starting point just because you know those notes, you have the fingerings for those notes, your fingers are already playing those notes, and then it also kind of helps you keep track of the rhythm. 1, 2, 3. You can also, that's again just kind of this echoing back the F major from the measure before. When we have this E flat 7. And again, a C octave is like a little bell-like figure. Also always works well. So hopefully, I know that was a lot. I know I just kind of fire hosed you with ideas there, but hopefully it's helpful and hopefully it gives you some food for thought and gives you some things to go with and play around with. I'm excited to hear how you develop that. So in general, just kind of the general takeaways from our session today. And if anyone has any questions, we're about to wrap up, so make sure to drop them in the chat. General takeaways: counting, and I want everyone to really enjoy this moment also because we heard 3 performers. They're playing so beautifully, and I know that at least 2 of them, I think, have been playing for 5 years or less. I'm not sure how long Josue has been playing, but notice they love music and they love making music, and they have this incredibly natural relationship with timing in the music. And I would like to separate the terms timing and rhythm because rhythm was also really solid in all of the performances, and also was never a major issue. But the timing, that's such, when we really enjoy music and we really have this connection to the music, you might not even understand how incredible it is that you have this extremely organic way of creating the timing in your music. And I just applaud all of you. I'm so in awe of each and every one of you. And that's the sort of thing that just really genuinely comes from loving the music so much and enjoying the process of making the music and delivering that into the world. And I think that's just an incredibly special thing. So thank you to all three of you for your performances. Beautiful, beautiful work. Keep up, keep enjoying your music making. Don't hesitate to reach out with any other questions that you may have. And if there are no other questions, then I would say until next time. So there's another video coming out on Friday, and the Friday after that, and the Friday after that, of course. And our next live masterclass should be most likely on the 4th of December, potentially on the 11th, but most likely the 4th. So if you're interested in submitting a video for performance, please don't hesitate to do that. Just send me an email and I'll walk you through all of the details of how to submit your play for review. And until next time, happy practicing.